Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us this evening. As Georgie said, I'm Paul Stanbury, and I'm going to now chat through one of my favourite destinations on the planet, which is Costa Rica. As Georgie said, I've been there on a few occasions, and always absolutely blown away by the wildlife, wonderful landscapes. It's just an amazing place to visit. So where is Costa Rica? I'm sure most people know where Costa Rica is, but it's on the narrow isthmus of land that connects North America and South America. That's pretty much almost at the narrowest point, narrowest down in Panama. It's just north of Panama. We on both our group tours and our tailor-made tours to Costa Rica, we use British Airways flights, and they offer a direct service into San Jose from London Gatwick. So Costa Rica may be a pretty small country, but it is incredibly diverse. So there's over 950 species of bird are crammed into this tiny little place. That's more than Canada and the US combined. It's a tiny country, covers only about 0.1% of the world's land mass, but holds over 5% of its biodiversity. So it gives you some idea what an incredibly rich country Costa Rica is. So these are the main, some of the key wildlife areas in Costa Rica. We've got San Jose, the capital, right in the center of the country, and then there's a string of very nice reserves down the Pacific slope, down the Pacific side. Carrara National Park, Talamanca Mountains, which are inland, Piedras Blancas National Park, Corcovado, and on the Caribbean slope we've got Tortuguero, Sarapiquí, and La Selva. It's just a very, very rich area to explore. I've only put a few of the sort of key wildlife spots on the map here. There's also Cana Negro, Manuel Antonio National Park, Palo Verde wetlands. There's plenty to keep you entertained in Costa Rica if you're there for 10 days or if you're there for 3 weeks to a month. Well, one of the great things about our tailor-made trips is you can tailor the tour to suit the length of time that you have available, and you can spend as long as you want in Costa Rica and not get bored. But the wildlife changes with altitude here. Down the center of the country, it goes through and south down to San Jose, and below you've got the Talamanca Mountains, and the way the wildlife changes with altitude. So you've got from sea level up to 11,000 plus feet at the Sierra de la Muerta Highlands, and the wildlife also changes from coast to coast. You have a different suite of birds and animals on the Pacific side of Costa Rica to the Caribbean side. So if you're going to do a tour to the country, then make sure you take in both coasts and go to a range of different altitudes as well, if you want to get the most out of your time and see the most, the greatest diversity of wildlife. It is a very popular country though, so we would always recommend booking far in advance as you can for Costa Rica, though we're always happy to do a last minute tailor-made trip to Costa Rica, but it's very popular. And it can be difficult, can be challenging to get some of the lodges last minute. But if you want to plan, hopefully about a year or so ahead, then we can normally put together whatever sort of itinerary that you're interested in. And we can do tailor-made trips to Costa Rica, fully guided if you want. So if you want your own wildlife guide to drive you around the country from site to site, we can arrange that with no difficulty. We have some fantastic guides in Costa Rica to call upon, probably some of the best wildlife guides anywhere in the world. Other options are it's becoming an increasingly popular self-drive destination, so we can rent a vehicle for you, provide you with with maps and sat navs to get from place to place, and then you can take advantage of the guides at the different lodges. Alternatively, we can arrange for you to be transferred by a driver, again from lodge to lodge, reserve to reserve, and then you, rather than having your own private guide, use the guides that are available at the lodges. And it very much depends on your budget, your interests, and various other factors. Most of our, well, all of our tours start with a night in San Jose, and there's some really nice little hotels in San Jose. The one we try and book our groups into is the Bougainvillea Hotel. The main reason why we use this place is it has a massive garden, and so it doesn't take long. Before you arrive, you go wander around the garden and you'll start to see some of the exciting birds and butterflies and insects, and you start to get an idea about just how wonderfully diverse Costa Rica is. So most tours will start with a night in San Jose because the flights tend to get in mid-afternoon, and then we head out into the wilds after that. So very much, I'm just going to show you now a few of the key wildlife reserves, key wildlife hotspots in Costa Rica. But on a Tailormade tour, you can pick and choose the particular ones you want to go to, and also, of course, the amount of time you spend in each. But one spot we would definitely recommend you don't miss are the Talamanca Mountains, and to the south of San Jose, along the Pan American Highway. Climb up to over 11,000 feet, as I mentioned earlier, at the Serra de la Muerte highlands. But it's not long before you climb up into the hills, you start to enter the wonderfully moist lichen and moss-draped cloud forests. That is certainly one of my favourite habitats in the whole of the country. And nice temperature as well. It's a nice place to start your trip, to acclimatise yourself to the tropics. It's pleasantly warm during the day, can be chilly actually at night and the morning, but you don't have the heat and humidity here that you get lower down. The lodge we tend to use both for our groups and our Tailormade clients is Cervegre Mountain Lodge. It's a very nice, comfortable lodge, sits at around 7,000 feet up in the mountains. The rooms are very well appointed. They're all en suite. It's not a large lodge, again, surrounded by very lush gardens, hummingbird feeders, bird tables. The great thing about most of the lodges we use in Costa Rica is that they are sat within the wildlife, and doesn't take long after you've left your room, then you start to see the birds and the other natural history that we're after seeing. But one of our main reasons, probably the main reason for going up into the Talamanca Mountains, is to see this spectacular bird, the resplendent quetzal, often touted as the most beautiful bird in the world, and it's easy to see why. They live up in these high cloud forests. I should mention the key time to go to Costa Rica for its bird life is January, February, March, April time. It's a good time to get away from the British winter as well, get some nice warm Costa Rican sunshine. But there are other times you can visit Costa Rica too. You can go in the autumn, you can even go in the summertime if you wish. But the key area for the key time for the birds and also for the weather is our winter period. So as well as hopefully seeing the quetzals, the mountains here are very rich in hummingbirds. Cervegre Mountain Lodge, and also there are a couple of little lodges we visit higher up in the mountains at about 9,000 feet, where we go in particular looking for the quetzals, and they have lines of hummingbird feeders up here, which are just buzzing with the most wonderfully different coloured hummingbirds. These are fiery-throated hummingbirds. You may be wondering why they're called fiery-throated hummingbirds, because they're not particularly fiery-throated in this particular shot. But if you get them in the right light, then you can see why they got their name. These birds have wonderful iridescence, that they have to be pointing just in the right direction to the sunlight, so you can see them in their full brilliance. There's a wide variety of different hummingbirds to be seen up here down in Cervegre Mountain Lodge. The feeders down here attract a lot of Talamanca hummingbirds and some of the smaller varieties as well, volcano hummingbird, scintillant hummingbird, and others. The grounds are very rich. There's a lot of fruiting bushes and trees in the grounds of the lodge, so you get to see a lovely variety of birds, say, without even really going that far from your front door. This is a long-tailed silky flycatcher, a real spectacular species. But you're also looking for moving mobile flocks of tanagers, warblers, and a wide variety of other species as well. And we definitely recommend at least 2 nights, preferably 3 nights, up in Cervegre to really enjoy the best of the high altitude species. Moving down to the lowlands, move down to Carrara National Park on the Pacific's coastline. This is a national park of lowland rainforest. The place to stay here is Villa Lapis. There's not actually very many places to stay around Carrara, give easy access to the reserve. Villa Lapis is a little bit rusty around the edges, shall we say, although they are apparently having a revamp in the next year or two. But it's in a fantastic location, right on the edge of the national park, with easy access to the reserve. Wildlife here, bird life here again, spectacular. Wonderful long-tailed manakin, just one of numerous varieties of birds that occur in these lowland rainforests. We'd encourage you to get up at first light. That's the time when the bird life is at its most active. As well as the malakins and the variety of toucans and toucanettes, etc., there's the spectacular boat-billed heron that's regularly seen along the Tacolas River. And the key bird for most people is the spectacular scarlet macaw. And there's a population of scarlet macaws that live in Carrara National Park. And one of the must-do things is to stand on the bridge over the Tacolas River in the evening. You can watch these spectacular birds flying into roost. There's also the opportunity to take a boat trip out into the mangroves to see some of the water birds that live here. There's roseate spoonbills here, but there's also a wide variety of other species to look out for. Lots of waders, terns, gulls, warblers that live in the mangrove forest. It's often people often comment that it's one of the highlights of their entire trip to Costa Rica is the boat trip out into the mangroves of the Tacolas estuary. And as well as the bird life, there's some wonderful insect life to enjoy as well. The spectacular blue morpho butterfly is the largest of a wide variety of butterfly species that you're likely to see in the reserve, along with a few mammals as well. Mantled howler monkey is a definite possibility here. And the guides will also take you out at night to do a bit of spotlighting, to look for some of the nocturnal birds and animals of the forest. This is a spectacled owl. In from Carrara National Park, we would recommend that we can do a clockwise circuit around northern Costa Rica, heading up to Arenal Volcano National Park. This is a nice stepping stone from the east to from the west to the east coast. Volcano was active up until about 10 years or so ago, and you could go around the back of the volcano and see red hot lumps of lava just bouncing down the side. But it's actually gone dormant now. But it's a fantastic place, not only scenically, but for wildlife as well. You're at a mid-elevation here, so different birds again to the ones you've seen in Carrara and up in Cervegre. There's a lovely lodge called Arenal Observatory Lodge, which has a wonderful view out over the mountain. And they have bird feeders in the grounds as well, which they put fruit out on every morning, attracting a wonderful kaleidoscope of different coloured shapes and sizes of species. The red-legged honey creeper, it has to be one of the most spectacular of all birds in Costa Rica, but it's just one of many. The silver-throated tanager here, one of a wide variety of different tanager species you're likely to see. Variety of hummingbirds. This is one of the larger species, the violet saberwing, known locally to the guides as violent saberwings. They're very aggressive nature towards other hummingbirds, and they will drive away other hummingbirds that dare to try and sip nectar from their feeder. And of course, there are some mammals here as well. Mammal watching in Costa Rica is not easy because it's a very heavily forested country, and a lot of the mammals will occur up in the canopy, and a lot of them will also come out at night. But there are some really lovely ones to see. The three-toed sloth here, you can see on his hind limb, the three toes, is a commonly seen mammal. And the guides tend to know where they hang out. They like cecropia trees in particular, so your guides will know where to go to find a three-toed sloth. And you might also see its close cousin, the Hoffman's two-toed sloth, as well. Then after, recommend at least a couple of nights in an Arenal, and then we move over to the Caribbean slope of Costa Rica. Our favoured base here is Selva Verde Lodge, which is close to the on the Sarapiquí River, and gives easy access to the La Selva Biological Centre. So say Selva Verde Lodge, very nice, again, comfortable lodge, all en suite, really nice rooms. That's the common thing in Costa Rica. The lodges are just so nice, nicely appointed, very comfortable, and all in good areas for wildlife. And Selva Verde Lodge has its own private primary rainforest reserve, which you access over this bridge over the Sarapiquí River. Lots of birds like to enjoy as well. This is a keel-billed toucan. It's a common species throughout Costa Rica. Hopefully, you'll see the spectacular sunbittern, so called because as it has the pattern of the setting sun on the primary feathers of its outstretched wings. And these birds are seen around quite close to the bridge in Selva Verde, and they're relatively widespread across the wetlands of Costa Rica and further down into Central America. We will also spend a day at the La Selva Biological Centre. It's certainly worth spending at least a day there. This protects a large area of primary untouched rainforest. It's run by OTS, the Organisation for Tropical Studies, and there are permanently based scientists which carry out research on the wildlife, and it's an educational facility, and they're also carrying out studies on sustainable forestry as well, sustainable tropical forestry. But it's just a fabulous area for bird life. There are trails that crisscross out into the reserve. You hopefully will see this spectacular bird, which is a great curassow. This is a female. The males are black all over. These are turkey-sized birds, so they are spectacular creatures. The very rare military macaw, if you're lucky, is seen quite regularly here. And there's some other species. We've got the little black and green poison dart frog, and you have strawberry poison dart frog as well, which are also seen commonly. From Selva Verde, you can head up into Tortuguero National Park, which is a forested park on the edge, right on the edge of the Caribbean Sea. Time to go here, probably. You go here at any time of year, always lots of wildlife to see. But if you go in September time, August, September, October, then you should see, hopefully we'll see the green turtles coming up on the beach to lay their eggs, and maybe the little hatchlings scurrying down to the sea after making their way up through the sand. If you go September, October time and head a little bit further south along the Caribbean slope down to Puerto Limon and down towards the Panama border, then you'll hopefully get to see the spectacular migration of raptors and the birds of prey moving from North and Central America down into South America are funneled by the topography and the fact that the isthmus of land is getting narrower and narrower here, and you get kettles of thousands and thousands of raptors circling over the mountains here as they head their way south into Panama. So September, October is the time to go for that. The southern Costa Rica has its own wildlife and spectacular landscapes to enjoy. Corcovado National Park probably being the most famous of the reserves down in the south, and your time down there will be centered around Corcovado, but there are also other areas to explore as well. Piedras Blancas National Park, La Cruz Biological Centre, and others. You're right down near the border with Panama here. And again, the wildlife and bird life is different to what you would see further north. If you don't want to drive all the way down there, it's not a horrendously long drive. It takes 5-6 hours to drive down, but there are internal flights that fly from San Jose down to Cavite to cut the journey down. Or you can also fly into Drake's Bay in Corcovado itself. So Corcovado, as I mentioned, is the key place here. It's covers over 424 square kilometers of the Osa Peninsula and protects the largest tract of primary rainforest left on Costa Rica's Pacific coastline. But the National Geographic named the reserve the most biologically intense place on Earth. There are over 500 species of tree here, 6,000 species of insect, 140 species of mammal, and over nearly 400 species of birds. To get some idea about just how incredibly diverse Corcovado is. Deep inland, there are still jaguars that roam these mountains, and there may even still be harpy eagle around. So, but when you visit the reserve, the inland part of Corcovado is pretty much inaccessible to most people. We're exploring the coastline and enjoying the wildlife of the coastal forests. We like to stay at Drake Bay Wilderness Resort. There are several different places to stay here, but Drake Bay is one of the nicest. You can see spectacular location right on a rocky headlands, backed by this most amazing forest. From here, you actually take a boat to get to it. It's inaccessible by land, so you have to take a boat trip of a couple of hours down a river and along the coastline to reach the resort. And then you explore Corcovado by taking boat trips along the coastline, landing at particular wildlife stations, and then hiking and walking from there. Scarlet macaws are common down here. A very common bird down in Corcovado. There's a huge variety of other species to look for as well. It's a particularly good area for mammals. So for those people with an keen interest in mammals, Corcovado is really probably the place to go. We've got white face capuchin monkeys, the northern tamandua, a small and very attractive little anteater, primarily arboreal, lives up in the trees, but sometimes seen at lower altitudes as well. We've got Baird's tapir, which are seen on a regular basis. Pretty much the only place in Costa Rica where Baird's tapir is seen well. If you go in September time, so if you've explored maybe you've gone to Tortuguero to look for the turtles and headed down to look for the raptor migration a bit further south, you can cross over to the Osa Peninsula, and this is the time to see the humpback whales that come into the bay here at that time of year. So Corcovado is the key spot really to explore. 3 or 4 nights at Corcovado will give you allow you to enjoy the highlights of the reserve, but there are other areas to see as well. Esquinas Rainforest Lodge is on the edge of Piedras Blancas National Park. Accommodation's a little bit more basic, but it does give access to a wonderful network of trails in this lowland, very rich tropical lowland habitat. If you don't want to have your own private guide, and this is the case with a lot of lodges in Costa Rica, a lot of them will have their own trails that radiate out from the lodge that you can explore independently, or you can explore with one of the guides actually based at the lodge itself. Esquinas has a wonderful variety of different habitats, from rainforest to riverine habitats to agricultural land, and gives you a really quite a large variety of different birds to look for. Rufous-tailed jacamar. I saw rufous-tailed jacamar myself in the grounds of the lodge when I stayed there. We went out for a walk one morning, and I think it was only in maybe an hour and a half we'd seen over 70 species of birds. So an incredibly diverse place. But you can also go out at night as well, spotlighting. For anybody interested in herps, in reptiles and amphibians, this is the time to go out, and with a spotlight you can get to see a nice variety of different nocturnal species. This is an eyelash pit viper, and the most famous inhabitant of Costa Rica, the one that you see on all the posters for the country, is the attractive red-eyed tree frog. La Cruche Biological Reserve is another very nice place to visit. It's a mid-elevation It's in the botanical gardens, but surrounded by about 300 hectares of pre-montane wet forest, home to over 350 species of bird. So it's another biological centre, also run by OTS, where they study climate, wildlife, ecology, etc. But they also have a few rooms which they let out for tourists. And there are bird tables here where they put fruit out each morning. So you get really lovely views of the tanagers that live in this elevation. Golden hooded tanager here is one of the most spectacular. The beautiful speckled tanager. Blue crown motmot also comes down for the fruit. And then you can explore the grounds of the Wilson Botanical Gardens, which Macouche is set in, or the surrounding forests as well. And there's some other lovely birds to enjoy. Golden-winged warbler. This is a migrant from North America, one of the most spectacular of the species you're likely to see there. And a few mammals as well. Central American agouti scurry around around the grounds. And the gardens have a wonderful variety of different orchid species. They grow a variety of orchids here. And so for those with an interest in the plant life, as well as the birds and mammals, there's plenty to enjoy. So I think, yes, so it's just gone 10 to 9, sorry. So I will leave you there with a sunset over a hummingbird. And just to say, it's the most incredible country to visit. I would thoroughly recommend a trip to Costa Rica. And if you have any questions, then please ask myself or Georgie. Thank you. And I shall